Alright everybody, so the topic today is muscle fiber types. What are different muscle fiber types? Does that mean I should train differently? What does that mean for my training? So, muscle fiber types. There's basically there's what we call two main categories of muscle fiber types. There's fast and slow twitch muscles. So your slow twitch muscle fibers. So your slow twitch muscle fibers. They are not good at producing force. They produce force more slowly, but at the same time, they are much more resistant to fatigue. They don't use as much energy and they tire out a lot slower. So they're perfect for endurance. They're perfect for endurance type activities. On the other hand, type 2 muscle fibers are what we call fast twitch muscle fibers. That means that they produce force quickly, they tire more quickly, and they use more energy. Now, at the same time, there's actually 3 different kinds of type 2 fibers. There's type 2A, type 2B, and type 2X. I don't know why we have 3 different kinds of type 2 muscle fibers. I don't know why we didn't just name them 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm sure that it was like type 1 and 2, and then they kept discovering muscle fiber types later on and didn't bother to fix anything. But so the thing is that all of your type 2 muscle fibers, although they are classified as fast twitch muscle fibers, they actually kind of form a range of they perform a range of functions so that it's not just slow on one end and fast on the other. Instead, it's slow, fast, and fastest. And so it's actually sort of a spectrum, from one side to the other in terms of force production and endurance. So now that we know that, what does that mean for our training? Well, there's a few different assumptions that people make. One is that muscles are typically comprised of certain muscle fiber types. So you think that certain muscle groups, say for example, you might say the biceps is an endurance muscle group, so it's probably mostly slow twitch fibers. Or you might say that the chest is mostly designed for strength, so it's it's mostly fast twitch muscle fibers. The reality is that when you go through all the studies, there's actually not too much of a difference on average. Most muscle groups are pretty evenly split between fast and slow muscle fiber types. And there are some muscle groups, notably like the calves, are like 70 to 80% slow twitch muscle fibers. But for the most part, most muscle groups are actually an even split. And in fact, the arms, which a lot of people assume are slow twitch fiber types, are actually a little bit more, favor the fast twitch muscle fibers a little bit more. Most of the upper body does, actually. So people assume that there are, different muscle groups have different, ratios, but the reality is that it's actually, on average, pretty even. And so the second part of that is that people then think, oh, well, that dictates how I should train those muscle fibers. So typically it's expected, okay, if I train a slow twitch muscle fiber, it's better to train it with high reps, lower weight. And vice versa, if I've got a fast twitch muscle fiber, I want to train it more in a bodybuilding style, 10 to 12 reps, moderate weight, or in a powerlifting style, very few reps, very high weight. The evidence on this is extremely, extremely divided. There's really not any clear evidence one way or the other that muscle fiber groups are, react best to just one, rep range. There is research, but again, it's very confused on the topic. And we also have research that already suggests that it's good to simply work within a variety of different rep ranges. So if you've got your chest, it's good to train your chest for strength. It's good to train your chest for hypertrophy. It's good to train your chest for endurance. All within the same program in order to get best results. And obviously you're going to want to focus on whichever of those 3 domains is what you are trying to maximize in your current training. But that doesn't mean that you just want to train that one, because you actually do get a better effect if you train the other 2 domains as well. So, the question, should you train muscle fiber types differently based on, the proportion of fast and slow twitch muscles and muscle fibers in them? Probably not, because the answer is that you should already be training across a wide variety of rep ranges to begin with, so it's kind of a moot point. It doesn't really matter too much. Even if you've got more of one or the other, it's probably better to just train a certain way. Another thing that people believe is that muscle fiber types dictate what your body is good at. So they'll say, if you've got more fast twitch fibers in a certain muscle group relative to someone else, then you're probably going to be better at producing force. So that means that you're more of a strength athlete. Versus if you've got more of a slow twitch muscle fibers in a certain muscle group, then you're expected to be more of an endurance athlete. So that is sort of true. There's certainly some evidence that having more muscle fiber type that is more beneficial for your current sport or whatever you're trying to train for is better. Now at the same time, they look at the proportions of muscle fiber types in elite athletes and in like normal people, and they turn out to be not that much different usually. Which is to say that yes, having more would probably be better, but the amount of genetic variation is not, it's there, but it's probably not, the biggest factor in terms of, your actual performance in that sport. I believe the study said that it was bodybuilders and powerlifters that have, pretty similar fiber type ratios to, the standard population that doesn't train, whereas I believe the endurance athletes maybe had a bit more. But I can't remember off the top of my head. And the other thing is that people believe that training will allow you to shift. By focusing on a certain kind of training, you can potentially shift the percentage of muscle fibers. So if I do a lot of strength training, that's gonna shift it so that I'm more of my fibers will be fast twitch muscle fibers. So the problem with that is that's it's potentially true. There's certain situations where it's possible. But the thing is that when you're building muscle, for the most part, you are simply causing existing muscle to expand, or you're causing existing muscle to grow. You're not necessarily building new muscle fibers. And so what that means is that the proportion is potentially going to stay the same. It is possible that, again, that certain types of training will cause preferable hypertrophy in certain types of muscle fibers, because again, the research is kind of out on that. But again, we already know it's better to work within a variety of rep ranges. So, should we focus on trying to change the proportion of muscle fiber types that we have? Probably not. I would say probably not, honestly. And this, for a lot of the information on this, you should check out Greg Knuckles' latest post on the subject on strength theory. He has a wonderful write-up about muscle fiber types recently, and he basically lays it out a lot better than I ever could. But again, he draws a lot of the same conclusions, which is that there's potentially some amount of training that can change or modify this, but it's really not that important because again, it's not really the thing you should be focusing on. It shouldn't really be the focus of your training. You do training because it gets you the qualities you want, not because it gets you the fiber types that you want. That's putting the cart before the horse. That's reversing the causal order of things. You should be focusing on training to improve whatever qualities, and if your muscle fiber types happen to change along with that to help that, then great, that's what they do. But you shouldn't really be focusing on the muscle fiber types themselves. It's not really a huge thing. It is possible that you can go get yourself, muscle fiber type checked. That's a thing you can potentially do. It's not easy. It's not like, like you grab like a body fat tester or something from your local store. You've got to go to a lab and everything. And even then, they may not tell you anything that's super worthwhile to know because, again, once you have this information about what your muscle fiber type ratios are, what do you do with that? Not really much of any practice. It doesn't really dictate much of any practical, input on how you should actually do things once you know that. But it is a thing you could look up, I guess, if you cared. And so, yeah, again, it does explain how, it does explain some of the genetic variation between people and why some people are better at some things than others. But it shouldn't really be something that you think about in your training, honestly. And so it's one of those cool little things, it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing to know about exercise. It's a cool thing to know about your body. It's a cool thing to know about exercise science. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's, gonna like. It's not like I'm gonna like sit down and write a program and be like, I gotta maximize these type 2 muscle fibers, guys. That's gonna happen. Anyway, so as always, like, comment, share, tell me what you want to see in future videos, and I will see you guys next time. Good night.